Microphone. Hi everybody, it is April and it is time for my two-monthly, once every other month favourites video. So these are my favourites from February and March of this year, and mostly I went out to shows, some in the West End, some at a festival. We'll get into it. But of course, favourites video, so what do we need to first talk about? Yes, books! So I picked up this book in the last month, and it is called Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. I don't know if you can see that bit in the middle. On my viewfinder it looks just plain white. It says to white people there. Okay, yeah. The book is by Eddo-Lodge, who I know. Rennie was president of the University of Central Lancashire's Student Union. She was therefore at NUS events at the time that I was actually working for Student Union at the time, and I was going to NUS events. So although I haven't actually spoken to her in a while, she's a friend in the broader sense of things. Unfortunately, like a lot of history, there's lots of bits of it which are not taught, are kind of eradicated from wide knowledge. And black history is one of those things which is especially glossed over a lot of the time. A lot of people know about West Indian people coming over after the war and driving buses in the UK, but that pretty much is as far as it goes. And this book, which I haven't read yet, that is my usual position on things, on books, unfortunately. I will get around to reading it, I'm sorry Rennie, I will. But this book goes into some of that history and how it's been eradicated in the UK, and also the link between class and race in the UK specifically. Rennie is of course black herself, and she's an amazing articulate speaker, as she's done events, she's been on Newsnight, she's been on a whole bunch of things. You may well have seen her around the media. I highly recommend you pick up this book. From the little bit that I have read and all what I've heard about it, it is something which will fill gaps in your knowledge, even if you think you've got a pretty good knowledge of this situation. One little tidbit of information actually, which I have a slightly closer link to Rennie than probably she knows, is that her boyfriend actually stood for election with me in Manchester back in about 2008. So hi Christian, if you're watching. I will come and visit your pub at some point and say hello properly. But for the meantime, hi. So just the one book this month. That's because there is lots of shows for me to tell you about that I've been to in the last 2 months. I've got to go in basically chronological order, otherwise I will miss some out. So I've got the tickets here to go through. So let's start off with Barnum. Now recently you might have seen The Greatest Showman, which actually came out about the same time this was running, but Barnum is the stage show of that same story of P.T. Barnum. But where I went to see it is a place called the Menier Chocolate Factory, which is in Southwark, near London Bridge Station, and it's a nice little venue. It's in the round, it's really small, and you just find what is amazing is that all these people doing acrobatic things around the auditorium and the stage. The stage is in the middle. People doing somersaults, being thrown in the air, and the roof is not that high. They are very precision about how far they're being thrown and things like that. Otherwise, they could do proper damage to themselves. And they do this, 8 shows a week. It was starring Marcus Brigstock, who you might know as a comedian, and it was excellent. All the performers were excellent, the cast were excellent, Marcus himself was great as his character, and even attempted a tightrope walk. Now, like I say, he does 8 shows a week. Apparently he does do it most of the time. Unfortunately, the performance I saw he didn't manage to do it unassisted. But, it's a really hard thing to do, so I'm very happy to go and see that show. I think it's over now, sorry. But it was a great show, and I recommend if it appears anywhere else. And then just a couple of days later, I went to see Five Guys Named Mo. And Five Guys Named Mo is, again, a musical. It's set in America in, I think, the 70s or 80s. And it's a lot of music from around that era. And it's at this venue called the Marble Arch Theatre, which is not a permanent venue. It's a pop-up theatre in the corner of Hyde Park. Again, great show. This is really well staged. It's got a big circular revolve around some of the seats, and then there's more seats around that, and then there's more stagey area at one end. Really interestingly set, and the singing was fantastic, and again, I recommend. Oh, and also, you get a free programme. In fact, the music is Louis Jordan's hits from around the time, if I get this absolutely right, who was obviously a massive artist around then. Right, moving swiftly on to another musical. This one was at the Other Palace, which is in Victoria, and it's called Eugenius. Eugenius is a musical basically devised by Warwick Davis and a few other people, obviously. Not just Warwick, and it's a very kind of classic story. Geeky boy, geeky girl in America. They write a comic which becomes true. They don't realise it. They're trying to make a film about this because it's been picked up by Hollywood. And towards the end of the film, the villain from real life, as it were, which is the same villain in the story, comes down and tries to take over the earth, in his hunt for our hero. A couple of people in it which I've seen before in other things. Scott Page, who was Uncle Fester when I went to see The Addams Family back in September, and also Dan Buckley, who I haven't seen for years. I saw him in a very similarly storylined musical called Loserville, which ran for about 4 months in the West End, which I happened to go and see. But this is also finished now, so you can't go and see it, I'm sorry, but it may be back at some other time. If it is, I'll point it out on my social media. On with even more shows. I haven't got physical tickets for this, but it's a show called Ad Libido, and it's by Fran Bush, who you may know is 1/3 of Kissing Killers, who are a comedy sketch group. And this show follows Fran's true enough story. It was true apart from the bit she said wasn't true, and she don't think she actually said anything wasn't true, apart from over exaggerating a couple of things. But it was Fran's story about her going to sex camp because she thought she needed to be fixed. I believe she says she has a disorder where she just doesn't get aroused, she doesn't feel sexy, she doesn't, that kind of thing, and she wants to feel this kind of feeling, and she was going to sex camp to actually try and make it work. It was a great show. I was rolling around in my seat. Hilarious. I suggest that you go and see it. It will be popping up around the place in London and the surrounding area, but it's doing, I believe, a run in Edinburgh for the Edinburgh Festival in August. So if you're there, go and see it. It's fantastic. We will not be wasting your money on that. So that production was at the Vault Festival, which is underneath Waterloo Station. There's like all these old vaults where the bank used to keep money and gold and what have you, but they're now just empty, and they're really useful for performance spaces. And there's a festival which happens there called Vault Festival, good name for a festival in the vaults. And another show I went to see at the Vault Festival was The Talk. The Talk is a verbatim show, so the words were taken from interviews that were conducted by sexual health charity Brooke, and interviews with politicians and others in the sector as well. So the main interviews were with students and parents, and basically they took lines from these interviews and had headphones, so they were hearing what we're saying. So the actors, about 8 of them, were giving these lines verbatim. Okay, they're arranged in such a way to make it interesting, sometimes funny, but it was all on the subject of sex education in schools. Now, of course, I have talked a lot about sex education in schools and how we absolutely need it. We need relationships education, and we need LGBTQ plus education. But this just highlighted the challenges that we're facing in sex education right now in schools. A a lot to do with parents, sometimes do with government, although government is definitely moving on this, and that's great. But it does sound like I'm very predictable in the shows that I go and see on these kind of festivals, which is probably true. Okay, no more actual plays, but there are 2 more shows. Stay with it, almost done. We've got first up Carrie Fletcher's concert, which I saw just this Saturday gone. It was at Cadogan Hall, which is in Chelsea. As you know, Carrie is a YouTuber and West End actress. And there was musical theatre songs, Disney songs, and melodies of the 2, and I loved it. It was fantastic. Carrie's voice is amazing. I love the show, and her album is now out now called When the Curtain Falls. I suggest you go and buy it or listen to it on streaming services if they're available. And last but certainly not least, and in fact this was actually April, but it's 1st of April, so you know, we'll go with it. I'll forget in 2 months' time. I went to see Dodie at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. I'm sure you know, but Dodie is a YouTuber and musician, and she has been putting concerts on around the UK and Ireland over the last few weeks, and I think London is her last stop. There's another one tonight as I'm recording this. I'm recording this on Monday. Hello. Believe me, the show is amazing. I liked her music. I saw her briefly at Summer in the City, but I had to rush back to Manchester, so I only saw a couple of songs. But she's so good with holding the audience, and the audience are great as well. They're quite in the right places. In fact, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen a few stories from a couple of the songs, just little excerpts of songs, and you can hear the crowd singing beautifully along. Amazing harmonies from the crowd. They're almost as good as Dodie. So check her out on your streaming services or elsewhere on YouTube. And if you like her stuff, I'm sure she'll be touring again. Just go and buy a ticket. You will have a great night. And I think that's where we're going to end this video. I hope you've enjoyed listening to all my favourites for these last couple of months. If you like the video, then do remember to give it a thumbs up just down below. And I make videos every single week, which is a really good reason to subscribe. And I shall see you next time. Bye-bye.